Hello everyone. Welcome to another video of Clini Launch Research Institute, where we provide you with insights and updates on life science careers. Today in our video, we will be talking about the demand for talent in life science industry and about the fact that though there is demand, why students are finding it difficult to get into jobs and what they must be doing about it. Let's dive in. Recently, Randstad released a report says that globally about 33% of senior leaders in life science were struggling with talent scarcity. What was worth noticing was the fact that about 45% of them they were hiring mainly to make sure skill shortage didn't slow down their businesses. And this is happening when demand for life science products is outpacing global economic growth. Now, here's something you must know. When the industry says there is talent scarcity, it is not implying that there are not enough graduates. It is saying there are not enough people who can step in and keep the things moving for the industry. Let's understand the dilemma of life science graduate. Even though life science students like you go through an extensive curriculum with several subjects, so many assessments, and the kind of efforts required in the lab, one of the realities or questions students ask us towards the end of their degree is, am I actually on the right path? Why am I finding it difficult to get a job? And this is where industry perspective becomes important. What's worth noting is that this difficulty is rarely about lack of effort or intelligence, but it comes from the gap that most students don't see until the very end of their degree. How their academic learning connects to how science actually functions inside the industry. What life science students lack, as noticed by the industry. From the industry's point of view, this gap shows up very clearly. When recruiters and hiring managers evaluate candidates, they are not looking at subject knowledge. They are assessing whether a candidate understands how science is executed in the real environments, where the work is shaped by workflows, timelines, compliance requirements, and measurable outcomes. This exposure is how science operates as a system in which many graduates have had limited access to during their academic training. Here's what we understand from our research and conversations with our network of recruiters from the industry. Fact first, degrees are not enough, and the industry is very clear about this. One of the most clearest signals we hear from the industry is this: a life science degree by itself is no longer sufficient to meet the sector skill needs. This is not an opinion coming from the training institutes or educators. This comes directly from employers. A sector skill needs assessment of life science published by the UK Department of Business and Trade states very clearly that graduate training alone does not meet industry skill requirement. Employers consistently highlighting a gap between academia training and workplace readiness. The same assessment also highlights that employers see deficiencies in 3 points: innovation and applied problem solving, entrepreneurial thinking within scientific roles, and the familiarity with modern industry specific technologies. These are capabilities that are typically developed through exposure, not through textbooks. Second fact, a study by National Center of Universities and Business found that more than half of bioscience employers report that graduates lack practical and research ready skills. Even though their theoretical knowledge is strong, from an industry point of view, being research ready means being comfortable working with uncertainty, knowing how to handle data that doesn't behave as expected, and understanding how experiments connect to the larger research or business goals. And being also able to operate with limited supervision. That's very important. Fact number 3, lack of regulatory and compliance awareness is a major drawback. Another gap that industry brings up very consistently, especially in the pharma and the clinical environments, is regulatory and compliance awareness, such as GCP and ICH guidelines. A skill assessment conducted by the Department of Pharmaceuticals, Government of India, clearly highlights major entry-level gaps. First, regulatory understanding. Second, industry compliance practices. And third, applied pharma operations. This is not something students usually realize early, because regulation is rarely positioned as a core skill during graduation. But from an industry point of view, regulation is not a side topic. It is the environment in which all work happens. This leads to a major setback for the students when attending interviews. Fact number 4, students lack problem solving and applied thinking. Another gap that recruiters talk about very openly, though students rarely hear it directly, is problem solving and applied thinking. According to the hiring insight shared by EPM Scientific, employers consistently identify problem solving and applied reasoning as a critical hiring factor in the life sciences. At the same time, they also note that these capabilities are underdeveloped in many graduates. What this means in practice is subtle but important. Most students can explain the concept. Many can describe a technique. Some can even walk through the steps of an experiment. But when recruiters start asking the questions like, why would you choose this approach instead of other? What would you do if the result did not match the expectations? How would you decide the next step if the time or data is limited? That's where the answers often become hesitation. Employers are looking for candidates who may not have all the answers yet, but who can think through a process, a situation, and explain their reasoning and show how they would approach the unknown. Fact number 5, lack of understanding of where the workflow fits. There's another pattern we have been noticing more frequently, both in conversations with recruiters and in how students respond during the discussions and interviews. An increasing number of students can perform a practical task, but are not very clear about where that tasks fit in the larger workflow. They might know how a technique is done, what the steps are, what does an expected outcome look like. But when the conversation shifts slightly, when someone asks, why is this step done at this stage? What happens before this and what happens after? If this step fails, what does it affect downstream? And because of that, critical thinking doesn't get exercised in the way industry expects. How does college preparation fall short even when students work hard? One-time exposure to experiments is not enough. This is one of that most misunderstood gaps, especially from a student's point of view. In college, if you have performed an experiment once and it worked, that counts as a learning. You move on to the next experiment, the next practical, the next record. In industry, that same thing is seen very differently. From an industry perspective, doing something once doesn't tell us much. What matters is, have you repeated it multiple times? Have you seen it behave differently under slightly changed conditions? Have you dealt with results that didn't match expectations? Have you had to stop, diagnose, adjust, and try again? Because that's what real works look like. And this is why recruiters often hesitate even when a student lists many techniques on their resumes. They are not asking, have you ever done this? They are asking, have you done this enough to trust your judgment when something goes wrong? And that judgment only develops through repeated exposures. not one, successful run. Academic labs are designed to avoid errors. Industry labs are different. This is another difference that students usually realize only after stepping closer in the industry. In academic labs, the system is designed to protect you from errors. Experiments are chosen because they work reliably. Protocols are tested in advance. Reagents are prepared for you. Time pressure is controlled. The goal is to help you see a concept clearly and finish the task correctly. In industry labs, the purpose is very different. The system is designed to detect errors early, not prevent them entirely. Work happens under real constraints. Timeline, cost, compliance, downstream impact. Errors are expected to occur, but they must be identified quickly, documented clearly, analyzed properly, and addressed systematically. That difference changes how work is approached. Industry doesn't have time to train from zero. This is one reality that rarely explained clearly to the students, but it shapes almost every hiring decision in life sciences. Industry doesn't operate like a classroom. In most life science organizations, pharma, biotech, clinical research, manufacturing, quality, work is already in motion. Projects have their own timelines. Data has deadlines. Compliance has no flexibility. So, when companies hire, they are not looking for someone to start learning from the scratch. They are looking out for someone who can enter an ongoing system and not slow it down. Training does happen, but it isn't the foundational training. The industry is changing far faster than the academic syllabus. This is another reality that explains a lot of confusion students feel, and it has very little to do with the individual effort. The life sciences industry today is changing continuously. New technologies are being adopted. New regulations are introduced. New tools, platforms, and workflows become standard much faster than before. Even in good colleges with committed faculty, there is an unavoidable lag. By the time a syllabus is finalized and taught, parts of industry practice may have already moved ahead. Newer tools may have replaced the older ones. Expectations around roles may have evolved. This creates a situation where students are learning correct science but not always current practices. What you must do, removing self-blame without removing responsibility. This is usually the point where students ask, so what do I do now? After our interaction with several members of the academia and industry, we have compiled a few steps which we believe you should be following to address the problem of skill gap for your career. A. Start looking at the capability beyond the subjects you know. Shift your mindset from have I studied this topic to do I know how this knowledge is applicable at work. For every core subject or experiment you have done, ask, where is this used? Pharma, clinical research, diagnostics, QC, data, or regulatory? What decision does this knowledge support in industry? Set a direction for your career before taking the next step. Don't rush into another degree or random certifications. First, narrow down one role family: clinical research, pharma operations, QA, QC, regulatory and compliances, bioinformatics, data-driven roles, diagnostics, or lab operations. C. Actively learn and develop your knowledge and exposure in the chosen domain. You may opt for structured internships, industry guided projects, role specific hands on training courses, job shadowing with professionals in lab. Do not just perform tasks, train your thinking, practice answering why and what if, not just how. When you learn a workflow, always ask, why is this step done here? What happens if it fails? Who depends on this output? What decisions come next? And last but not the least, getting guidance from people who understand real industry roles can make a huge difference for you. At CliniLaunch, we run regular masterclasses where industry experienced counselors break down real career paths and expectations for life science graduates. Here we discuss about latest developments in the industry, emerging career roles, and the skills students will need to get into the industry. I encourage you to sign up for one of our masterclasses. We have added the link in the description here, and start preparing for your career. Clarity with your career path now can save you a few years at a later stage. Thank you.
Visit us today, www.clinilaunchresearch.in.